yourself to taste sensation. Our Extreme Chicken Supreme is made with 3 different kinds of cheeses.
What's up, vault dwellers and fellow trash cinema aficionados? Today, we're digging into 13 more of the most insane B-movies ever made. I mean, we're talking films where chickens come back from the dead, scientists reanimate the dead, and Jesus Christ himself battles vampires with kung fu until they're dead. And these movies, they just transcend normal cinema. From rubber monsters to martial arts rock bands, these films push the boundaries in ways both intentional and accidental. So let's dive in. Way before Star Wars made sci-fi mainstream, Laserblast gave us a teenager who finds an alien weapon in the desert, goes on a revenge rampage against bullies, while slowly turning into an alien himself. I mean, the stop-motion aliens, they look like they're made by someone who learned claymation in 3rd grade, and the laser effects consist mainly of just like the camera shaking while things unconvincingly explode. But you know what's amazing about this film? It's how it somehow convinced Leonard Maltin to give it 2.5 stars, which is more than he gave The Godfather Part 2. You know, the film's tagline was, "Imagine what would happen if a teenager had an alien weapon." And apparently what happens is just a lot of driving around in the desert, random explosions, and one of the most hilariously nonsensical endings in B-movie history. When our hero finally transforms, I mean, he looks like he's wearing a Halloween mask that was left in a hot car too long.
Do you think you could tell me the way to Cadavra Cave?
Cadavra Cave? Why do you want to go there?
Ranger Brad, do I tell you all your ranger business?
This pitch-perfect parody of 50s sci-fi B-movies has more intentionally wooden dialogue than a whole lumberyard. We've got Dr. Paul Armstrong and his wife, Betty, who go meteorite hunting for the rare element atmospherium, while evil scientist Dr. Fleming resurrects the titular skeleton, clearly a Halloween prop, sometimes on strings. Meanwhile, we have aliens Crowbar and Lattice, who crash land, disguise themselves as humans with names like Tergasso and Bamin, and their escaped mutant falls for Betty. Add in Animala, a woman made from 4 different force creatures using a transmutron gun, and you've got a film that just lovingly creates every sci-fi B-movie cliche with just surgical precision. You know, this movie, it's a most wonderful, beautiful disaster, and what makes it special is how it nails every aspect of bad 50s sci-fi. From the stilted dialogue,
Ranger Brad, I'm a scientist. I don't believe in anything.
to the skeleton puppet controlled by visible wires, to Animala's interpretive dance scene that just hypnotizes our hero. The climactic wedding where the skeleton uses mind powers to force an alien to be his bride, only to be attacked by a love-struck mutant and then thrown off a cliff. It's the kind of bonkers plot twist that only makes sense in the world of B-movies. It's not just parody, it's a cinematic love letter written with the perfect amount of reverence and mockery.
Don't be embarrassed about opening your mouth and letting rip with all you've got, because the person in the seat right next to you will probably be screaming too. And remember this, a scream at the right time may save your life.
The Tingler by William Castle, who was easily the king of movie gimmicks, he outdid himself with this one. So select theaters actually installed vibrating devices under seats that would buzz during key scenes, a technique Castle called Percepto. Vincent Price, he plays a scientist who discovers that fear creates a physical creature called a Tingler that lives on your spine. and the only way to destroy it is by screaming. So it's basically a scientific explanation for why we get chills when scared, and they turned it into a monster movie. The film features one of the earliest uses of color in a black and white film. The bathtub scene where bright red blood stands out against the monochrome background. And the Tingler itself, it looks like a rubber lobster tail with legs attached, and it's operated by clearly visible wires. But the real genius is the scene where Price breaks the fourth wall to warn the audience that the Tingler is loose in the theater.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not panic, but scream! Scream for your lives! The Tingler is loose in this theater, and if you don't scream, it may...
Causing the vibrating seats to activate. Castle knew that the real monster, it wasn't on the screen. It was whatever your imagination conjured when your seat started shaking.
But sit back and watch Hell Comes to Frogtown.
In this post-apocalyptic gem, we've got Rowdy Roddy Piper, who plays Sam Hell, one of the last fertile men on Earth who's tasked with rescuing fertile women from Frogtown, which is a settlement run by mutant frog people. The government makes him wear an electronic chastity belt that's gonna explode if he tries to escape or engage in any unauthorized sexual activity. Because apparently in the future, bombs on genitals are standard government procedure. The frog costumes look like they came from a Halloween clearance sale, with big googly eyes and rubber masks, but they're played with such earnestness that you just can't help but love them. The film somehow manages to be both a critique of post-nuclear war anxiety and an excuse to have Rowdy Piper fight giant frogmen. The dance scene alone, where the frog leader enjoys his dance of the three snakes, it's totally worth the price of admission. You know, it's like Mad Max and Kermit the Frog had a baby, and the baby grew up watching just too many wrestling matches.
I told you I'd bring you a body. A beautiful one. Soon it will be yours.
Bill, you can't.
Yes, I can.
A little while before Tinder, there was Dr. Bill Courtner and his unique approach to dating, which is keeping his fiance's severed head alive in a pan while he shops for a replacement body. So, following a car accident that decapitates his girlfriend Jan, our mad scientist hero keeps her head alive through science while prowling strip clubs and beauty contests looking for the perfect body to attach it to. And you know what makes this film special? It's Jan's character development. I mean, she starts as a typical damsel in distress, but as the film progresses, she becomes just increasingly bitter about her situation. Eventually, she ends up conspiring with some mysterious monster that Bill keeps locked in a closet. And this monster, I mean, it's barely shown, which makes it all the more effective when it does finally break free. The film has this gritty, grimy quality that makes everything feel uncomfortably real, especially the laboratory scenes where Jan's disembodied head delivers just scathing monologues about her boyfriend's life choices.
Can't stop me.
It's like a relationship drama where one person literally has no body to walk away with.
Are you sure it's safe to be out here all alone in the middle of the night?
Absolutely. Heck, no one's been out here since those horny teens were found decapitated back in '84. Wendy, relax. We're young.
You know, leave it to Troma Films to make a horror comedy musical about undead chickens. So when a fast food restaurant is built on an ancient Native American burial ground, because of course it was, the spirits of the dead merge with the processed chicken to create a poultry-human hybrid, which is seeking revenge. It's like if, Food Inc. was directed by someone who thought subtlety was a type of sandwich. This film features more bodily fluids than a hospital during flu season. with practically every scene ending in just someone being covered in blood or vomit or, other substances I'm just not going to mention. Yet somehow, between the grossest gross-out gags in cinema history, the film manages to deliver legitimate commentary on fast food culture, corporate exploitation, and consumerism. Plus, the songs there are legitimately catchy, with numbers like
Benj is a dish best served fried,
which will just stick in your head long after you've washed the memory of the egg laying scene right from your brain. So speaking of things that stick with you, which of these B-movie monsters would you least want to encounter in real life? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you've got a stomach strong enough to have actually watched Poultrygeist, let me know if you were ever able to eat fried chicken again.
Of course he's dead. The dosage was too large.
You killed him.
No, I did not. I gave him life.
I kind of doubt that H.P. Lovecraft ever imagined his story would become a splatter comedy featuring a severed head performing oral sex. But here we are. Stuart Gordon's adaptation follows Herbert West, who's a mad scientist with a glowing green serum that can bring the dead back to life. And they do tend to come back a bit violent, a bit insane, and with this interesting shade of chartreuse. Jeffrey Combs delivers one of the great B-movie performances as West, bringing this, peculiar, intense energy to just every scene. The practical effects, they still hold up amazingly well, especially the scene where Dr. Hill's severed head commands his headless body around the lab. The film, it walks this perfect line between horror and comedy. It never winks at the camera, but it's fully aware of how ridiculous everything is. West's deadpan delivery of lines like,
Doctor, I'll come back to life,
while chaos erupts around him, is a just comedic genius. The film built to what might be cinema's greatest everything goes to hell finale, with severed heads, intestines with minds of their own, and a truly unforgettable showdown involving a bone saw and just absolutely zero regard for subtlety. It's the kind of movie that makes you say, what the hell did I actually watch? While immediately reaching for the remote to watch it again. Oh, and speaking of reanimation, you know what really brings this channel back to life? That sweet, sweet like button. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into cinematic madness, why don't you inject some glowing green serum into that like button for me? I just love how Ming has an earthquake button on his control panel, despite just discovering Earth exists. Anyways, Dino De Laurentiis looked at Star Wars and said, I should make that, but with more spandex and Queen music. The result is this candy-colored space opera featuring American football star Flash Gordon, who's battling the tyrannical Emperor Ming the Merciless. Every set looks like it was just designed by someone who just ate too many candy flips at a disco. And the costumes, they make the village people look understated. But you know what makes this film just absolutely special? It's how it fully embraces its comic book origins with zero attempts at gritty realism. From Brian's winged Prince Vultan bellowing to Ming's fabulous robes, everything is turned up to like 11-teen. The practical effects have this, charming, handmade quality, and you can practically see the wires on all the spaceships. But it just works because the film commits so completely to the aesthetic. And then, there's Queen's soundtrack with Freddie Mercury belting, which might be just the most perfect B-movie theme song ever recorded. yes, the iconic "It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters." And that's the cheerful slogan for the best meat products in the county, made by kindly farmer Vincent Smith and his sister Ida. The secret ingredient? People. Vincent and Ida, well, they capture travelers, cut their vocal cords, and plant them in their secret garden right up to their necks. And then they feed them to fatten them up before processing them into smoked meats. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but Leatherface opened a farm-to-table restaurant. This film, it walks this perfect line between horror and satire, especially when Vincent explains his philosophy. You see, he's not a mass murderer. No, he's solving the world's food shortages. And the final chainsaw duel, where Vincent wears a pig head over his own, it's absolutely terrifying, but hilariously absurd. Director Kevin Connor created this weird, dreamlike atmosphere that just makes everything feel like a demented fairy tale. It's the rare horror comedy that's genuinely unsettling, but still making you laugh. I mean, especially when Vincent looks at his garden of human heads and says with pride, "This year's crop was the best."
We can no longer stand idly by and allow these children of God to be slain by these agents of the devil.
I mean, the title alone tells you exactly what you're getting here. Jesus Christ returns to Earth to fight vampires who figured out how to walk in daylight by using harvested lesbian skin as sunscreen. Now, if that synopsis doesn't sell you, I really don't know what will. This was made on an absolute micro budget in Canada, and this film features musical numbers,
and into the light,
kung fu fighting, and the Son of God teaming up with Mexican wrestling legend El Santo to battle the undead. What makes this film just incredible, it's how it somehow manages to not be offensive despite its premise. Jesus is portrayed as a badass champion of the downtrodden, especially the LGBTQ+ community, which he defends with martial arts moves and righteous fury. The fight scenes look like choreography was done by someone who watched a Bruce Lee movie backwards, but the enthusiasm makes up for the lack of skill. I mean, there's this musical number where Jesus sings about love while doing laundry because, why not? It's the kind of film that makes you glad B cinema exists.
There's not a lawyer in L.A. who'll touch your case. So what do you say? You want to play ball or not?
Whose team am I on, Warden, and what am I supposed to do?
Okay, I'll run it down to you.
Rudy Ray Moore turned his nightclub character into Blaxploitation gold with his tale of a pimp released from prison who wants to get revenge on the man who framed him. Moore's Dolemite is a hurricane of charisma.
Damn, Mama, you must be new on my scene.
He delivers rhyming insults and boasts that would make Shakespeare question his life choices.
Man, move over and let me pass. Supposed to have to be pulling these hush puppies out your mouth.
I mean, the fight scenes feature some of the most obvious missed punches in just cinema history, with Dolemite's kicks landing like a good foot away from his opponents who just, fall down anyways. What The Room is to drama, Dolemite is to action films. It is so ineptly made that it circles back to brilliance, I mean, you can see boom mics dipping into frames, actors waiting for cues, and there were moments where, Moore, he just clearly forgets his lines, and he just improvises. But none of that matters, because Moore's magnetic performance, it just pulls you through every technical disaster. I mean, there was this Eddie Murphy portrayal in Dolemite Is My Name, which, it captured Moore's hustle, but nothing captures the beautiful chaos of the original. Where every line is delivered like it's the most important thing ever spoken. when Dolemite declares,
I hope you ain't cold as the wind this city, because the way I feel now, baby, I could sure warm you up.
You believe every word.
Right here. Come on, boy. Come on, big boy. Right here.
Try and imagine a world where motorcycle ninjas control Miami cocaine trade, and the only ones who can stop them are a synth-rock band whose members, they're all orphans and black belts in Taekwondo. So that's the premise of this incredible time capsule of 80s excess. This was made by YK Kim, a Korean martial arts instructor who he'd never made a film before, and clearly he never bothered to learn how. Dragon Sound, our hero's band, performs beautiful songs like Against the Ninja and Friends Through Eternity, while somehow finding time to attend college, fight ninjas, and help band member Jim find his long-lost father. The fight scenes, however, they're legitimately impressive. YK Kim and his friends were actual martial artists, so while, they couldn't act their way out of a paper bag, they could definitely kick their way through one. The film disappeared after its initial release until Drafthouse Films rediscovered it in 2009, giving this beautiful disaster the cult following it deserves.
Story goes these great big rats come scuttling off the slave ships and raped all the little tree monkeys.
Many moons before Peter Jackson won Oscars for Lord of the Rings, he was making the goriest comedy ever filmed. Also known as Dead Alive in some countries, this zombie film follows Lionel, a mama's boy whose domineering mother gets bitten by a Sumatran rat monkey and turns her into a zombie who infects the entire town. This film uses more fake blood than like any film before it. There were like 300 liters in the lawnmower scene alone. Jackson brings just a Looney Tunes sensibility to zombie violence, with undead bodies being subject to, everything from blenders to lawnmowers, and while our hero tries desperately to maintain his normalcy. The zombie baby scene alone, where Lionel takes a zombie infant to the park and gets in this fight with other parents, would be the most outrageous thing in just any movie, but Braindead saves its best for last. A sequence where Lionel straps a lawnmower to his chest and literally mows through a house of zombies, creating a tidal wave of blood and body parts that it just has to be seen to be believed. It's the film that proves sometimes the greatest artists start by seeing how much fake blood they can pump through a zombie's severed head. From radioactive aliens to zombie chickens, these films prove that sometimes the most entertaining cinema, it comes from the fringes. They may not have the budgets of Hollywood blockbusters, but they have something better. Pure, unfiltered creativity and a willingness to try just absolutely anything. These beautiful disasters remind us why we fell in love with movies in the first place. They're not about focus groups or 4-quadrant appeal. They're about filmmakers looking at the rules and saying, nah. So the next time someone tries to tell you about some obscure art house film, ask them if they've ever seen a scene where Jesus Christ does kung fu or a zombie baby gets stuffed in a blender. Now, that's cinema. Hey, before you leave, I want you to check out these 2 videos. This is part 1 of the greatest B movies in history, and this one is an awesome video that ranks all the classic Universal monster movies. Keep it real, folks.